require a sign, and Greeks seek after wisdom. Did you notice the two contrasting people? So the Jews need God to do something. The Greeks need God to say something. When Jesus goes into Samaria, he doesn't do any signs, but what does he do? He talks for 48 hours. And the wisdom that he pours into them is exactly what they need and they receive. What does he do for 3.5 years in the Jewish community? Signs, wonders, and miracles. And he does have some people come out of that belief, but it's actually an inferior belief system. I'm going to show you how. I'll show you why as we proceed through the ministry of Jesus. 23, we preach Christ crucified. To the Jews, that's a stumbling block. To the Greeks, that's foolishness. The word stumbling block in the Greek is the word scandalon, where we get the English word scandal. So what Paul is saying is the cross to a Jew is a scandal. What's the scandal? God cursed a guy on a tree, and you people believe in him. You must be stupid. And that was the message being sent at the followers of Jesus. Paul says, so for the Jews, he's a stumbling block. The cross is such a scandal, they can't get past it. He says, for the Greeks, the cross is foolishness. Nobody needs to die for me. That would be the response of someone who doesn't know Jesus. But to those who are called, both to Jews and to Greeks. Now watch this. You pull the two into one. And Paul does this better than anybody in the New Testament. Paul says Jesus tore down the middle wall of partition between two men, made one man in the earth. So he pulled down the wall between Jew and Gentile, made one unified people. To those who are called, both Jews and Greeks, Christ is the power of God. Christ is the wisdom of God. Christ is the best of both worlds. See that? There you go. You say, oh, I thought we were going to end. I could see you going to where there's no more healing because we're in the open. No. Christ is the power of God to heal, and Christ is the wisdom of God to change. Healing and transformation in one man. But there was a purpose for what Jesus did when he did it on the earth. So let's think for a moment about the mind of the Jew and the mind of the Gentile, circa 1 Corinthians chapter 1, circa ministry of Jesus. A mind attuned to the natural realm needs a sign in the natural realm. A mind attuned to the spiritual realm needs a relationship in the spiritual realm. And this is why we don't appeal to people. We don't appeal to get them to believe through intellect and stuff. You appeal to belief through relationship. And so we introduce people to the love of God as a God who loves them in spite of the natural realm. In spite of the stuff they've done. In spite of the problems they have that are visible, that are literal. He loves them anyway because he's dealing with them from the realm of spiritual relationship, not from the realm of the natural. Can he invade the natural? Absolutely. Does he invade the natural? Yes, with you every day. You are his invasion of the natural world. Let's say that again. Stop waiting on God to invade the natural world in the future. And start letting God invade the natural world in the present. Go invade the natural world with spiritual wisdom. What is your faith for? Stuff. Bills. Money. Okay. All of that's real. And the Father, if he cares for sparrows, he cares for your electric bill. And I pray that way. Hey, you can't number the hairs of my head, not give a rip if I can take care of this or cover this. So yes, Father, this is before you. Invade the natural realm. You're a spiritual people. You are a relational, not a religious people. You see, legalism demanded the miraculous. And when legalism demanded it had to demand the miraculous because legalism was all about legalities. It was all about what you touch, what you taste, what you smell. What did Paul say was the system of this world? Touch not, taste not, handle not. You notice all that's in the natural? That's not just the system of the world. That's the system of the church world. That's what Paul's saying. The system of the church world of your day, Jews, was don't touch, don't taste, don't handle. And because you live in a don't touch, don't taste, don't handle atmosphere, if you're going to believe in God, he needs to touch, taste, and handle. And anytime they had a crisis of that, they started building golden calves. Right? Why? Because they needed to touch, taste, and handle. So when Jesus comes along, if you're going to prove you're really from God, what needs to happen? A bunch of stuff I can touch, taste, and handle. So you may have just spent 48 hours with a bunch of Samaritans and changed their life, but you're going to have to heal my kid. You heal my kid, maybe I'll believe. And Jesus goes, no, you won't. It wouldn't cause you to believe long term. Why? Because I don't believe a miracle makes us believers. I believe a miracle makes us skeptical. When we see a miracle, we become skeptics, especially if we're not already in the faith. People outside of the faith see a miracle, they become skeptic. Well, I don't think he was really sick. You been down that road?
Oh, yeah.
I have.
Oh, yeah.
Oh, a woman got healed. I shared this with someone because we prayed for a woman. She was healed of a tumor. And I mean, just, it's non-cancerous. It's gone. It was cancerous. It's non-cancerous. And I shared it with some non-believers, and the response was, well, I'd have to see if it was actually really there in the first place. My point is, we're always looking for a reason why the miraculous that we demanded wasn't as miraculous as we think it could be, or you say it is. Because the miraculous doesn't make us believers, it makes us skeptics. However, relationship is an entirely different animal. Because in relationship, I don't have to always approve of what my children are doing. I don't always have to, stay with me parents, I don't always have to believe in what they're doing. But I love them. They're mine and I'm theirs. And here's a mind blower. Even if they stop believing in me, I still believe in them. Okay? So if my children have a crisis of the faith, I don't have a crisis of them being my children.
That's good, Paul.
I love them. I'm there for them. I'm waiting on them. I am not always approving of what they're doing. I don't always think what they're doing is healthy. I know some of the things that they're doing are going to lead them into chaos. I may try to steer them. I may try to help them. I may let them walk headlong into it on their own, because nothing teaches you don't turn left like turning left.
That's right.
You know? And so sometimes you got to let them walk right into that chaos, and it breaks your heart to watch them walk into that chaos because you know it's chaos. And you could stop it if you'd go be super authoritative and just stop their liberty and say, no, you're not going to do that. And sometimes you do that when they're young and they're immature, but as they're growing up and becoming their own people, as they're moving out of an old covenant existence as a little kid where they got rules and parameters into a new covenant existence where they've got the voice of the Holy Spirit, you step back and let them walk into some chaos once in a while. And how would you feel if that caused your children to believe you hated them or that you were out to get them? And yet it does sometimes. Because we have to grow up and mature and realize that love is not about people stopping us from getting into problems. Love is about people walking through the problems with us.
Amen.
Love is not about keeping your kids from all the dangers in the world. Love is about teaching your children to avoid them. And when they find themselves in the midst of them, love is teaching them that you'll be there on the other side. And that where you can, you will hold their hand in the middle of the valley of the shadow of death. You don't lead them into the valley of the shadow of death, but you don't leave them in the valley either. In fact, to the best of your ability, you will prepare a table before them in the presence of their enemies, and the rod and the staff that used to discipline them as little kids will now keep the wolves off of them as adults. Have you noticed? I'm using natural illustrations, but I'm talking supernatural. I'm talking spiritual.
Right, right.
And the rod and the staff used to smack you in the old covenant is now just looking out for wolves in the new covenant, even though you're walking through a bunch of chaos. Your father hasn't abandoned you. Your father's grown you up. Father's grown you to a place where you have relationship over religion, where it's not about you believe in Him because He healed your kid. You believe in Him because He loves you and He's your Father. And the immature way to walk with the Father is to walk with the Father as if He must do everything in order for you to stay involved. And that if He doesn't do everything, you're not involved anymore. And sometimes we call ourselves grace people, and yet that's still how we view God. Through a legalistic mindset. We want God to treat us with grace, but we want to treat God with legalism. That needs explained, doesn't it? We want God to be gracious to us when we fail. But whenever God doesn't do every single thing we think He ought to do to prove He loves us, we tell God how much we dislike the actions that God has shown or the lack of action that God has shown because we treat God with a legalistic spirit instead of a heart of grace. It's not that God needs your permission or needs your forgiveness. It's that God is walking you through chaos in the valley of the shadow of death. And sometimes what you really need more than Him to get you out is for Him to get you through.